For a decade, I was nothing more than a songbird in a cage. He never once mentioned marriage until my dying day. Then suddenly, I woke up 10 years in the past with a chance to avoid the same tragic fate. My first move after coming back wasn't to cry or hide. I went straight to find the man who would one day become his greatest rival. Back then, though, he was just a simple mechanic struggling to make ends meet. I didn't waste time with small talk. I slapped my bank card on his workbench and made my offer plain. Marry me, and my whole paycheck is yours. After hearing my proposal, he clenched his jaw and countered, "Pay me $3,000 monthly and we have a deal." Just like that, I had proposed to Zhang Jia. The cigarette dangling from his lips made him look tough as he asked, "What do you even see in me?" I scrambled for an answer, and the best I could come up with was, "You're good looking." His laughter made my cheeks burn, but I pushed forward. "So, do you accept?" Zhang Jia didn't answer right away. He just stared at me, like he could see through my desperate plan. I held his gaze, hoping he could feel how serious I was. Finally, with a casual smile, he said, "A bride just walks into my shop and offers herself? Why would I say no?" The very next day, we were married. Clutching that small red marriage booklet afterward, everything still felt like a dream. In my previous life, I had actually met Zhang Jia. It happened during my 7th year trapped by Che. I'd managed to escape his mansion with nothing but the clothes on my back. When I encountered Zhang Jia then, he was already a powerful businessman. His expensive suits and commanding presence made him seem untouchable. I begged him to help me, and he did, giving me a place to stay and a ticket to escape. But Che still found me in the end. I pushed those painful memories away and looked up at my new husband. "Where to now?" I asked. "Taking you home," he replied simply. I was surprised. "Weren't we just married? Weren't you planning to take me home anyway?" Zhang Jia lived in a half-built apartment complex. Construction workers were everywhere, the building not even finished. "I used to haul bricks here," he explained, noticing my confusion. "Got friendly with the contractor, so I stay here free until they finish the building." His place was bare, concrete walls, exposed pipes, and just a military-style cot for a bed. The bathroom didn't even have a proper toilet, just a basic tap for washing. Zhang Jia watched my face closely. "Having second thoughts? You can still back out." I set my small bag down firmly. "No regrets," I answered. "Are you wondering what's going to happen next? Will Che succeed in tearing apart our main character's new marriage? Or will Zhang Jia find a way to protect his wife despite losing his job?" The story is about to take an unexpected turn that nobody sees coming. Zhang Jia isn't just going to sit back and accept defeat. He's got a plan that will completely change their lives. If you're enjoying this story of second chances and true love, hit that like button right now. It really helps our channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more amazing stories like this one. Our channel brings you the most emotional and captivating tales of love, revenge, and redemption every week. What do you think will happen? Will our main character finally escape Che's obsession? Or is she doomed to repeat her tragic past? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The next part reveals a shocking twist about Zhang Jia's true capabilities and shows exactly why our main character was right to choose him over the wealthy and powerful Che. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you know someone who would love this story, please share it with them. Now, let's get back to our story and see how Zhang Jia plans to turn everything around. "We'll sleep here tonight," he said. I glanced at the narrow bed. "Isn't it a bit small?" Zhang Jia just narrowed his eyes and muttered, "It's enough." When night fell, I took the military cot while he casually spread some newspapers on the concrete floor and laid himself down. The room had no curtains, and moonlight streamed through the bare windows. "Zhang Jia, are you asleep?" I whispered. Came his drowsy response. Worried he might catch cold on that hard floor, I shifted to the edge of the small bed. "Do you want to come up here? The bed is small, but we could squeeze together." Several seconds passed in silence before he finally answered, "If I come over, don't expect to get any sleep." I pulled the thin blanket tighter around me. "I don't mind." The moment those words left my lips, Zhang Jia moved like a wild animal, flipping over and lunging toward me. Caught off guard, I instinctively turned my face away. The pressure on me suddenly lightened, and in the moonlight, I could see the mocking expression. "Don't say things you don't mean," he warned. "I'm straightforward and take words seriously." He moved to return to his newspaper bed. Seeing him retreat, I grabbed the edge of his shirt in one quick movement. My fingers brushed against his skin through the fabric gap. Zhang Jia's whole body tensed as he looked at me with complicated emotions in his eyes. I bit my lip hard. "I really am willing," I said, afraid he would pull away. Boldly, I let my fingers explore further. Zhang Jia's eyes darkened. "Now you've lost your chance to back out." Unlike Che, who deliberately sculpted his body at expensive gyms, Zhang Jia's physique came from years of physical labor, naturally tanned and powerful, raw strength in every muscle. Eventually, I couldn't hold back anymore and broke down sobbing until he stopped. He roughly kissed away my tears, calling me delicate with clear disappointment in his voice. Already in pain, his criticism instead of comfort only hurt more. Upset, I turned away, refusing to look at him. He didn't try to console me either, just got out of bed and disappeared somewhere in the unfinished apartment. I wrapped myself tighter in the blanket, feeling increasingly wronged. In my past life, Che had kept me like a pet bird for 10 years. Only death had finally freed me. I thought some divine mercy had given me another chance by sending me back in time. But Zhang Jia seemed just as difficult in his own way. As tears silently fell, suddenly a warm towel covered my face. Zhang Jia had returned, holding a basin and a hot towel. "You've been crying," he stated simply. "No, I haven't," I lied. "No," I insisted. Zhang Jia ignored my denial, roughly wiping my face before turning to wring out the towel. "What are you doing?" I asked. "There's no hot water here for a proper bath," he explained. "This will help you feel better." I was feeling sticky and uncomfortable, so I put my anger aside. With reddened cheeks, I reached for the cloth. "I can do it myself." "Stay still," he commanded, lifting the blanket and placing the steaming towel against my skin. After some quiet moments, I heard Zhang Jia speak softly. "Don't be angry. I'll be gentler next time." His voice carried an unusual hint of awkwardness. "Okay," I whispered. The warmth against my skin slowly spread, and I couldn't help but smile slightly before hiding my face under the blanket. When morning came, I woke to find Zhang Jia already dressed neatly. 2 fresh buns sat on the small table. He must have gone out early to buy them. "Hot water's ready," he announced. "I'll take you to work after you wash up." "No need," I replied. "I can go by myself." Zhang Jia shot me a serious look. "There are construction workers everywhere around here. It's not safe for you alone." Then he added, "Call me when you finish work. I'll come get you." It took me some time to finish washing up. When I emerged, I noticed my bank card sitting on the table, the same one I'd given Zhang Jia during my desperate proposal yesterday. "Don't forget your card," I reminded him. Zhang Jia barely glanced at it. "Keep it yourself. I'm not so broke I need to use a woman's money." Liar. He was clearly broke, but since he wouldn't take it, I didn't push. I thought perhaps I could use my savings to find us a better place to live. If Zhang Jia didn't agree to moving, we could at least buy a proper bed, though it would never compare to the golden mansion from my previous life. Just looking at Zhang Jia gave me a strange feeling of safety. This pleasant mood lasted until I arrived at work. The moment I stepped into the office, Luing rushed over with a conspiratorial air. "Shou, I have wonderful news for you." She lowered her voice dramatically. "My cousin has taken a liking to you." She pulled me into a corner. "My cousin isn't just anybody. He's incredibly handsome with an amazing personality, Cambridge graduate, and his father is the wealthiest man around. So many rich girls have tried to catch his attention, but he never showed interest in any of them. Luing's eyes sparkled with excitement. Yesterday, he suddenly asked me to arrange a blind date with you. Sister, your luck is changing. Cambridge graduate? Father is the wealthiest man? A name suddenly flashed through my mind. My face drained of color. Phaeton, I'm sorry to disappoint your cousin, but I'm not available. I'm married, I explained to Luing. She looked completely shocked. We've been colleagues for a whole year, and you've never once mentioned having anyone. How could you suddenly be married? It's true. We've legally registered our marriage, I insisted. We haven't had the ceremony yet, but I'll definitely send you an invitation when we do. I smiled politely. I have classes starting soon, so I should— Only after I was safely out of sight did I feel my strength drain away. Che? He shouldn't have appeared in my life at this point. In my previous existence, we met much later. Why had he shown up so much earlier this time? And how did he know I was teaching at the same school as Luing? My extremities went cold with fear. I tried to calm myself. In this lifetime, I was already married. I had Zhang Jia now. I wouldn't repeat my past mistakes. Still, Che's unexpected appearance threw me off balance completely. I couldn't focus all day. My right eyelid kept twitching, an old superstition that something bad was coming. Sure enough, when school ended and I was heading home, I spotted a sleek black car parked by the gate. The luxury emblem on its hood was impossible to miss. As I approached, a man stepped out holding an enormous bouquet of roses. "Ms. Chan," he called out, flashing a charming smile. "Sorry to surprise you like this. I'm Su Che, Luing's cousin." The school area was bustling with students and parents collecting their children. Che's extravagant roses caught everyone's attention. Several people who recognized me began applauding and encouraging me to accept his romantic gesture. My face went pale. "What do you want?" I managed to ask. "No need to be nervous," Che replied with a slight smirk. "I just wanted to meet you properly. I happened to see you once while waiting for Luing, and I was immediately captivated. I hope you don't mind my boldness today. No pressure. Just think of it as making a new friend." Though Che's performance seemed convincing to everyone else, I could detect the familiar hint of obsession lurking in his eyes. Feeling trapped, I frantically scanned my surroundings, and that's when I spotted Zhang Jia waiting in the corner. He was casually straddling a beat-up motorcycle with a cigarette hanging from his lips, watching the scene with seeming indifference. Like a drowning person spotting a life preserver, I rushed toward him. The familiar scent of motor oil that clung to Zhang Jia helped ground me back to reality. Turning to Che, I stated firmly, "I've already told Luing that I'm married." Che clearly hadn't expected this news. His charming smile froze instantly. When his eyes shifted to Zhang Jia, I caught a flash of pure hatred before he quickly masked it. This confused me deeply. Why hatred? This should be his first time seeing Zhang Jia. How could he already feel such strong emotion? Che recovered quickly, adjusting his expression and tone. "How careless of me. I should have checked Ms. Chen's personal situation first." He extended the flowers toward me. "Since I've already purchased these, I won't take them back. Please accept them as my wishes for your happy marriage. Flowers for a beautiful lady. I hope your husband won't mind." Before I could respond, Zhang Jia let out a sudden laugh. "Who says I don't mind?" He stared directly at Su Che. "I'm a jealous man who can't stand seeing my beautiful wife accept gifts from other men." With that declaration, Zhang Jia placed a pink helmet over my head. "Put it on." Looking at the brand new helmet, I felt strangely comforted. "Did you buy this specifically for me?" I couldn't help asking. "Just picked it from the trash," he replied casually. I grinned. "Next time, Could you find a blue one? I prefer blue." Zhang Jia raised an eyebrow. Pretending to take the helmet back, I quickly secured it and tapped the top twice. "How do I look?" His eyes sparkled with amusement as he pulled down the visor. "Idiot," he muttered, turning away. After the incident with Che, word spread quickly that my husband was a mechanic. During our break time, I overheard several teachers gossiping. "She might be pretty, but look who she ended up with," one whispered. "Did you see his motorcycle? So beat up it sounds like a farm tractor." Their laughter filled the room. When I entered, someone deliberately raised her voice. "Chen, where does your husband repair cars? My husband just bought a Mercedes. We could bring it to him for maintenance to support your family business." "Sure," I replied calmly. "I'll send you the address later." Luing couldn't tolerate it anymore and pulled me out of the office. "Have you lost your mind? They're mocking you to your face and you just take it. You're attractive with a good job. Why would you settle for—" She paused, then continued more gently. "Honestly, don't take this the wrong way, but I think you've been deceived. When you're fresh out of college, you always think love matters more than money, but you'll regret it later," Luing continued. "Honestly, my cousin would consider you even though you've been married before." "Luing, that's a lovely bag," I interrupted, my eyes landing on the Aries purse on her desk. "Is it new?" Luing paused, her cheeks reddening slightly. Yes, Luing was just another salaried employee like me. It was obvious who had given her the expensive bag and why. I decided not to push further. "My husband and I are happy together," I stated firmly. "How we live is our business. Let's not discuss him anymore. I don't appreciate it." That afternoon after work, I was surprised to see Zhang Jia waiting without his motorcycle. "Where's your bike?" I asked. "Sold it," he replied simply, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly as he said, "Let's go." He took my hand and led me in an unfamiliar direction. After walking several hundred meters, we stopped near an apartment complex close to my school. "Third floor. Let's take a look," he said. I had a feeling about what was happening but couldn't quite believe it. Hesitantly, I followed him up to the third floor, where the middle apartment stood with its door open wide. Stepping inside, I discovered a modest two-bedroom apartment. Though small, it was decorated with remarkable warmth. Blue curtains, the color of a clear sky, swayed gently in the breeze. The evening sunlight streamed through the windows, bathing everything in a soft golden light. He had remembered I liked blue. I can't properly explain what I felt in that moment. I had lived 2 lifetimes, one in an extravagant mansion and another in an unfinished concrete shell. But right then, my heart overflowed with pure happiness. "You sold your motorcycle to rent this place?" I asked softly. Apartments in the school district, even older ones, weren't cheap. Zhang Jia's finances couldn't possibly cover such rent easily. Ignoring my question about the motorcycle, he simply said, "It's closer to your school. Makes your commute easier. Besides, the other place didn't have hot water. You wouldn't have managed that for long." Before he could finish his explanation, I turned and wrapped my arms around his waist. Surprised by my sudden embrace, he paused momentarily before his arms encircled my back. "All right. No need for tears now," he murmured. "Save those for me tonight, okay?" It wasn't as serious as it sounded. That night, Zhang Jia did indeed make me cry, but as he held me, he tenderly kissed the corner of my mouth. "A double bed is definitely better than a single," Zhang Jia said, his face glowing with satisfaction. "We should have moved sooner." "When did I ever suggest that?" I protested, fighting the urge to shove him off the bed. The next day was Saturday. Zhang Jia and I had planned to retrieve our few belongings from the unfinished building, but by afternoon, he still hadn't returned home. "I might not make it today," he explained when he called. "There's a problem at the factory." I didn't think much of it. "Then I'll go by myself. It's just one suitcase." The connection was poor, and Zhang Jia's place was noisy. I couldn't hear his response before I hung up. Zhang Jia had always been protective, never letting me visit the construction site alone. His concern stemmed from the many workers around who made him uneasy. But since it was the middle of the day, picking up a single suitcase seemed harmless enough. To my horror, the moment I entered the room, 3 or 4 construction workers followed me inside. "Is the pretty lady here all alone?" one called out. A chill shot down my spine. "Who are you? Get out." "We work here. We can't just leave," the leader laughed. "We've seen you around with that man having quite a good time. Why not have some fun with us too?" The bare room offered nothing I could use to defend myself. Heart pounding, I turned and made a dash toward the door. The leader reacted quickly, grabbing my hair and throwing me roughly to the ground. "You've got a nice figure," he growled. "I've been watching you for a while, waiting for today." As he spoke, he forced his weight on top of me. I struggled frantically, screaming as loudly as I could. Just as his hand reached for my clothes, the door suddenly crashed open. The man pinning me down was struck hard and fell to the side. When his companions moved to help, a commanding voice stopped them. "I'm the developer of this property. Are you certain you want to challenge me?" The 3 attackers exchanged nervous glances, evaluating whether the claim was true. After a tense moment, they cursed and fled. Che removed his expensive suit jacket and draped it over me. He turned to his assistant who stood in the doorway. "Find those men and deal with them appropriately." The assistant nodded and departed. Che then looked down at me. "Do you remember?" "That's true," I admitted. Che released my wrist. "What brings you here?" he asked. "If I'm not mistaken, this building isn't even completed yet." "That's none of your business." "Actually, it is. I'm the developer of this property." Che fixed his eyes on me. "What if I sued your Zhang Jia for illegal occupancy using that as grounds?" "What do you really want?" I demanded. "I want you," Che declared, making no attempt to disguise his intentions. "Chen Si, I've been clear from the beginning. I want you. I've also made it clear that I'm married. That's not my concern." He bent down until we were eye to eye. "That man can't provide the life you deserve. You're a pearl that shouldn't be gathering dust in his hands. The choice is yours, whether your husband ends up in jail or you enjoy a better life with me." I tightened my grip on my suitcase and walked away. This time, Che didn't try to stop me. It wasn't until I had left the neighborhood that I realized my entire body was shaking uncontrollably. 3 workers following me inside, then Su Che's perfectly timed heroic rescue. I couldn't believe this was mere coincidence. Even in this second life, Che remained unchanged. Whatever he wanted, he would pursue relentlessly, without limits. I called Zhang Jia repeatedly, but got no answer. As darkness fell, I began to worry. Since our marriage, Zhang Jia had never come home this late. I rushed directly to the factory where he worked. The place was in chaos. I stopped an elderly janitor. "Do you know where Zhang Jia is?" "Little Zhang? He's been taken to the hospital." I froze, unable to comprehend why he would be there. The old man shook his head sadly. "It's terrible luck. He ran into some troublemakers." By the time I got the address and reached the hospital, Zhang Jia was being wheeled out of the examination room. His face was streaked with blood, and his right arm was encased in a plaster cast. His dirty clothes were spotted with red stains. I couldn't hold back my tears. "Zhang Jia, why are you here?" He approached and gently wiped my face with his good hand. There. I'm not dead, am I? No need for tears." Even now, he spoke so casually about his condition. I felt irritated and was about to scold him when someone exclaimed loudly, "Holy shit, Brother Jia! Your wife is gorgeous, like something out of a fairy tale." Then in a lower voice, "No wonder you don't go out with us at night anymore. If I had a wife this beautiful, I wouldn't leave the house either." That's when I noticed a young man standing behind Zhang Jia. He was youthful with a direct, honest gaze that made him difficult to dislike. His blunt compliment embarrassed me, but it improved Jiang Jia's mood. He curved his lips in a smile and warned, "Stay away from my wife." After consulting with the doctor, we learned that aside from a minor fracture in his right hand, all his other injuries were superficial. There was this weight off my chest. I had to ask, "How'd you get so banged up?" The boy jumped in before Jiang Jia could answer. "We ran into some hothead today. Nothing wrong with the car, but he kept saying Jia messed it up. Wanted money for it. We said no way, so he brought his buddies and tore up the shop." "Didn't anyone call the cops?" I asked. "What good would that do? Guy's got friends in high places. Fancy license plate. 5/8 in a row. Only big shots get those. 5/8. Something clicked in my head. What was he driving? "Black Hummer," the boy said, shaking his head. "Now we've made an enemy of someone powerful. What next?" He turned to Jiang Jia. "Think the boss will blame us?" I missed whatever came after. Everything went dark for a second. It was Che again. A hand pinched my cheek. I yelped and found myself staring into Jiang Jia's playful eyes. He seemed so calm about everything. "Aren't you worried?" I asked, confused. "About what?" "You know, what happens now?" Jiang Jia just laughed it off. "Worst case? I quit. What can they really do to me?" He smiled that smile of his. "Besides, I've got my wife looking after me, getting my whole paycheck every month, right?" My face warmed up, remembering my promise. "I said I'd give you all my money." He tapped my forehead gently. "Silly." Later, I found out Jiang Jia lost his job. I overheard the garage owner on the phone. "Sorry about this, but this customer's too powerful. My hands are tied." Jiang Jia just stood there smoking, face blank. After the call ended, he turned to me. "Wife." I thought he wanted to talk about getting fired. I was ready with comforting words when he said, "I think I stink. Help me take a bath?" I looked up, confused. No sadness on his face. Jiang Jia raised an eyebrow. "I just need help with the water. Can't get this cast wet." Then he leaned close to my ear. "Unless you've got other ideas, tell me. I'd lose an arm to make you happy." Embarrassed and annoyed, I forgot all about his job situation and stomped off to the bathroom. I could hear him laughing behind me. During his bath, though, Jiang Jia noticed something. His fingers lightly touched my neck, his smile disappearing. What happened here? Only then did I see the blood stain and scratch marks on my neck, battle scars from earlier that day. I quickly covered the mark with my hair. "Just an accident." Jiang Jia gave me a look that said he wasn't buying it. "You accidentally choked and scratched yourself?" I couldn't keep hiding it. "I went to that abandoned building to get something. Someone followed me." His face darkened instantly like a storm cloud. "But nothing bad happened," I added quickly. "Someone stepped in and helped me." Jiang Jia didn't say anything. We stood there in the tiny bathroom, frozen in place. The steam was clearing, leaving us in a sudden chill. I shivered, which snapped him back to reality. He wrapped a towel around me. I tugged at his sleeve. "Are you mad at me? I shouldn't have let you go by yourself." His eyes showed worry and regret, but I knew this mess was all my doing. I couldn't hold back anymore. Everything came pouring out. "It was Che all along. He sent those roses to me at school. That Hummer was his. He smashed up your shop on purpose to cause trouble. And he was waiting there today. He planned to rescue me. He even knows where we live. He said he'd sue you." My voice cracked. "I don't understand why he's so obsessed with me." "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "This is all because of me. If it weren't for me," I broke down completely, letting out all the hurt and frustration. "I never did anything to provoke Che. Why couldn't he just leave me alone?" Jiang Jia gently wiped my tears with the towel. "Why do you always cry so easily?" "Aren't you angry with me?" I asked between sobs. "Angry at you? For what? For being beautiful? For having a charm that even thieves can't resist? His teasing words somehow lifted the heaviness in my heart. I sniffled. Do you regret it? I asked quietly. Regret what? Marrying me. Instead of answering, he asked, what about you? Do you regret marrying a mechanic who had nothing and now doesn't even have a job? I shook my head firmly. If my wife doesn't regret it, why should I care about anything else? A smile touched his eyes. My wife, who wasn't impressed by some rich guy, chose a nobody like me. She's even willing to support me financially. What do I have to complain about? His words brought fresh tears to my eyes. I buried my face against his chest. I love you. Jiang Jia stiffened, surprised by my sudden confession. Then he pulled me closer, his voice rough with emotion. Your man is right here. After that day, Jiang Jia was constantly on the move. Despite not having a job, he left early and came home late. I didn't know what he was doing, but I could tell he was rattled by what happened with Che. Even though we lived right next to my school, he insisted on dropping me off and picking me up every day. Just stay with the other teachers, he'd say. Don't go wandering off alone. Okay, fine. I couldn't help but smile. But I'm not some little kid. I'm not going to break. Maybe not to you, Jiang Jia said softly, but you are to me. Lately, Jiang Jia seemed busier than ever. When he couldn't pick me up himself, he'd send this guy he met at the hospital. It was awkward. I tried telling the guy not to bother. It's just down the street. I can walk by myself. The guy just grinned. No can do. I promised Jiang Jia I'd look after you. Besides, a pretty lady like you needs protection. When I couldn't convince him, I turned to Jiang Jia. Keep this up, and everyone will start saying you're wrapped around my finger. Jiang Jia shrugged. I like taking care of my wife. What's it to them? That made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. Then came that day at work. Luing pulled me into a corner with this secretive look on her face and showed me her phone. Isn't this your husband? The photo showed Jiang Jia drinking with this stunning woman. There were several men hovering around her. The place was dark, so I couldn't see Jiang Jia's face clearly, but it was definitely him. My friend took this at a bar, Luing said, watching my reaction. I heard he got fired from the garage and now he's just some lowlife. Look at him, entertaining women for drinks. She clicked her tongue. Is this your so-called true love? Better be careful you don't catch something nasty. Are you done? I asked, feeling my face grow cold. Luing, you're always talking trash about my husband, taking secret photos, stirring up trouble. You're trying to break us up. We both know what Che offered you. I stood taller. Just because I don't say anything doesn't mean I don't know what's going on. From now on, unless it's about work, stay away from me. Later, I saw Luing come into the office with red eyes. I heard colleagues comforting her, saying I was ungrateful. That night, Jiang Jia came home very late. Just getting back? I asked. Yeah, he nodded. I sniffed. You've been drinking. He playfully rubbed his face against mine. Are you mad at me? I dodged with a small laugh. Jiang Jia pulled me close and sighed deeply. You've been having a rough time lately. I hugged him back and shook my head. The next morning, I noticed perfume on Jiang Jia's shirt. There was a faint lipstick mark on his cuff. Remembering Luing's photo, my heart twisted. If I could wish for anything, I'd wish Jiang Jia was still just a simple mechanic. Days passed like this, but I never thought there'd come a day when I'd actually catch Jiang Jia with another woman. I was out shopping with some teachers from school when we walked past this fancy restaurant. One of them nudged me and pointed. Hey, doesn't that guy look like your husband? I glanced over. There, sitting by the window, was a man facing a woman wearing perfect makeup. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just someone who looked like him. It was Jiang Jia. My face must have given me away because my colleagues got all awkward and tried to make light of it. Probably just a business meeting. See how normally they're talking? I just nodded, not wanting to stare anymore. Let's go, I said, turning to leave. Suddenly my colleague grabbed my arm and gasped. Look, your husband! My heart jumped to my throat. Then I heard her say, He just hit that woman. I spun around just in time to see Jiang Jia flipping the table over. He was looking down at the woman, whose face had gone white. His lips were curled in disgust. I rushed closer and caught his words. With that face of yours, you're still after me? What are you thinking? Then he stormed out, looking fierce, until our eyes met. That proud lion look instantly vanished. Wife, he frowned and started explaining. I didn't hit her. It was an accident. My legs are long. I just knocked the table over by mistake. I couldn't help laughing. I'm not mad at you. Jiang Jia sighed with relief. His lip twitched as he took my hand. Ready to head home? When we got back, I finally learned what Jiang Jia had been up to. He'd been dealing with Che's sister all this time. Her sales job was just a cover. She was actually trying to get close to him. Su Jia, Jiang Jia scoffed. She's pretty wild, has a thing for younger guys, and has done all sorts of crazy stuff. I got close to her recently and dug up a lot of dirt through their shady connections. They sold out their company secrets to competitors. It'll be in the news tomorrow. Not huge, but enough to keep the Su family scrambling to fix things for a while. You did all this just to keep Che away from me? In a few days, I'll need to go to Shenzhen. I won't feel right if I don't block Che completely. When I heard Jiang Jia was leaving, I felt this immediate sadness. Why are you suddenly going away? How long will you be gone? Maybe a week? If this trip goes well, I might have to travel often in the future. It turned out what Jiang Jia had been busy with was starting a transport company. I learned about some routes while fixing cars, rented a few trucks to get started. I was learning as I went, doing everything myself at first, he explained, ruffling my hair. Wait for me to come back. The day Jiang Jia left, I slipped my bank card into his pocket. It had 70,000 yuan on it, all the money I'd saved over the years, every bit of it. I left a note. Always carry money when you're away. The pin is our birthdays. Come home safe. After Jiang Jia went on his trip, that story about Su Jia really did hit the news. Someone had pulled strings to make it happen. It blew up into this huge scandal among rich folks, with everyone talking about it. Just like Jiang Jia planned, Che was too busy to bother me anymore. Life got easier. At the end of the school term, they started picking who would be named outstanding teacher. Each school only got one spot. From early talks, the school was going to pick me. But when they announced it, the name wasn't mine. It was Luing's. The school leaders looked uncomfortable when they told me. Leaving the principal's office, I ran into Luing. Since that photo incident, we barely spoke. She hummed to herself as she walked by, not saying a word to me. At first, I didn't let it bother me. But that night, while video chatting with Jiang Jia, I couldn't keep it in anymore. I tried hard not to cry, but Jiang Jia noticed something was wrong. What's the matter? He asked. Not wanting to worry him, I lied. Just watched a sad movie. Got me all emotional. Jiang Jia laughed softly. You're so silly. After hanging up, I slapped my own face. I was angry at myself for going backward. In my past life, when my father was wrongly put in jail and my mother got terribly sick, I never cried. But now, I was crying over something so small, right in front of Jiang Jia. I was almost asleep when I heard someone at the door. My heart raced. What if it was Che causing trouble? I grabbed a baseball bat and stood behind the door, waiting. The door opened. I swung the bat. The person caught it easily, and then I heard that familiar teasing voice. What's this? Got a secret boyfriend and now you're trying to kill your husband? I gasped. Honey, how did you get back? My wife was feeling down, so as her husband, Jiang Jia kissed my forehead gently. I've already registered the company in Shenzhen. You can come visit me during summer break. I nodded eagerly and started counting days on my fingers. After what felt like forever, school finally ended. I couldn't wait any longer and bought a ticket to Shenzhen right away. When Zhang Jia drove me to see his company, I was completely shocked. I'd imagined him running a simple transport business with a few trucks, but what I saw was a full logistics company that combined e-commerce with delivery services. It wasn't huge, but they already had lots of clients. I was so surprised I couldn't find words. How did you come up with this? I wondered. I remembered that in my previous life, Zhang Jia never went to Shenzhen. He stayed a regular mechanic until a foreign car company boss noticed his talent. He jumped to a big international auto group, then left to start his own team working on computer chips. That's how he made his first real money. His chip business kept growing bigger. But now, Zhang Jia's path had changed because of me. He left the repair shop earlier than before and never met that boss. Instead, he moved to Shenzhen to start this logistics business. E-commerce has been booming in Shenzhen lately, he explained. Logistics is where there's a gap. Since I know about vehicles, I put the money I made before into this venture. What Zhang Jia didn't mention was that back in Bin City, the Su family controlled most big businesses. The obstacles he would have faced starting something there would have been It was Luing, wearing a black uniform skirt. She hurried over to me, speaking stiffly. I took advantage of some connections to set you up with my cousin. I need to say sorry for that. I pressed my lips together. No need to apologize. Wait! Luing grabbed my hand. See, I'm really sorry. They made me do it. After hearing those words, everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on a soft bed. The room was huge, with roses blooming outside tall windows. This was the villa I'd lived in for 10 years. My mind couldn't make sense of it. Had I really died? Was I still in the villa? Had everything with Zhang Jia just been a dream? While I was trying to figure it out, the door opened. Su Che walked in. You're awake. I tried to get up but couldn't move at all. I was completely weak. Don't bother trying. You can't move. I thought about what Luing said right before I passed out. Was this your doing, Su Che? You know keeping someone prisoner is against the law, right? Su Che burst out laughing like I'd told a joke. Prisoner? Chen, you've always been mine. He came closer, his eyes wild and obsessed. You don't understand. We've always been a couple living right here. That's when I finally understood why I could never escape Che no matter how careful I was. He had been reborn too. I felt suddenly calm. Always a couple? Every day I spent with you felt worse than dying. If you hadn't threatened my parents, I would never have stayed here with you. His face filled with shock. That's right. I remember everything from before. I stared at Che. So in this life, I won't give you any chance to hurt me again. How could I ever hurt you? No, see, you love me. We were together for 10 years. It was my fault. I shouldn't have left you alone in that villa. Otherwise, you wouldn't have... Che didn't finish, but I knew what he meant. Otherwise, I wouldn't have died. Hearing this, I wanted to laugh. Che, don't you understand? After my parents died, I still stayed with you for a reason. I was gathering evidence to avenge my parents. I needed to see you go to prison. How else could I find peace? You wondered why your company's secrets leaked, why those perfect crimes were discovered by police. It was all me. My goal was making you pay for everything. Enough, Chi cried. But I wasn't done. Not enough. After you went to prison, I set that fire myself. I wanted you to lose everything you touched. All of it was already ruined for me anyway. I stared at him coldly. Why did I love you? In my previous life, I turned down your advances. So you tricked my father into taking a high-interest loan, then forced me to be with you. My father didn't want me to suffer, so he turned himself in. My mother, overwhelmed with anger and sickness, was cut off from medical care by you. You forced me into that villa. I looked at Che and laughed without emotion. Love? You don't deserve to speak that word. After saying this, I stood up from the bed, moving my supposedly drugged limbs. Che was stunned. How can you move? I looked at him, feeling nothing. In my last life, you drugged me, taking away my dignity. Did you think I'd make the same mistake twice? I gave a signal, and hidden police officers burst through the door. Che panicked, still pleading. See, let's forget everything and start over, okay? I don't care what you did. I forgive you. I spoke softly as I saw Jiang Jia appear in the doorway. I ran to him, but as I passed Che, I whispered, "But I don't forgive you." Che was taken away, and suddenly all my strength vanished. I collapsed into Jiang Jia's arms. "Husband, is there anything you want to ask me?" Jiang Jia shook his head. "It's all in the past. Yes, it was all over. The rights and wrongs had nothing to do with me anymore. From now on, I was simply Jiang Jia's wife." "When you have time, can we visit my parents?" I asked. Jiang Jia smiled slightly and replied, "Of course." Since my rebirth, I'd made excuses for my parents to move back to their rural hometown. They retired early and lived comfortably. They didn't know about my marriage to Jiang Jia until he brought gifts to celebrate New Year at their house and to ask for their blessing on our marriage. In March of that same year, we finally held our wedding. After 2 lifetimes, it was my first time wearing a wedding dress. Jiang Jia had no family. His parents had passed away long ago. Only my parents attended from either side. As my husband bowed and served tea, calling, "I don't know," Jiang Jia thought for a moment. Maybe I wouldn't have looked for anyone. I was used to being alone. "Then why did you accept my proposal?" Jiang Jia seemed to recall something and smiled. "At that time, I thought having someone around would be nice, especially a beautiful wife like you." I widened my eyes. "So you were swayed by my looks?" "Probably not." Jiang Jia tried not to laugh. "Since you also had that bank card, I was tempted by the money too." Seeing me pout, Jiang Jia kissed my forehead. "Thank you, wife, for giving me a home." No, it should be me thanking him. Living twice, I had finally found true love.